You are now listening to the Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks podcast, brought to you by Solid.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks. Today, I have with me Ilan Frank. Ilan, good to see you.
Nice to see you as well, Yoni.
Quickly introducing Ilan. Ilan serves as the Chief Product Officer at Checkr with over 2 decades of leadership in the software industry. Ilan brings a wealth of expertise to expand and lead Checkr's multi-product vision and strategy, accelerate innovation in the enterprise sector, and deliver an exceptional customer experience. Before joining Checkr, Ilan oversaw product, design, and research at Airtable, where he led a product-focused shift into the enterprise. Prior to Airtable, he was an early product leader at Slack, leading enterprise infrastructure and Slack Connect. Earlier in his career, Ilan played a key role in SAP's cloud transformation, launching both collaboration and cloud analytics solutions. Ilan, thank you for joining. I really appreciate you making the time.
Absolutely. This is going to be great.
Fantastic. So, Ilan, many of the guests in this podcast have experience as data and analytics leaders and come with, how we use AI and data and analytics. Today, we're going to have a bit of a different journey in our story. You were a product leader for many years at Airtable and Slack, and today product leader at Checkr, as I mentioned in the introduction. And you're going to talk to us a bit about how AI gets built into the product, and a bit about how AI gets used in a product organization. I think it's going to be super interesting. So let's maybe start with Airtable. So, first of all, can you describe a bit your time at Airtable at high level, just to get our audience to be familiar with it?
Sure.
And maybe also what Airtable does in case they don't know.
Yeah, let's start there. And then I'm happy to jump very quickly into what I did at Airtable. So Airtable is a platform that allows companies or individuals many times to build applications. These could be sophisticated applications, or they could be very, very simplistic, almost like a spreadsheet is the simplest form of an application. But you can actually build workflow and integrations and much, much more sophisticated than just a spreadsheet. And I was there for about 2 years. I started out actually as an advisor, then loved the company so much that joined as head of enterprise and platform, and then transitioned into leading all of product and design later on in my time there.
Fantastic. And what's the AI story at Airtable that you wanted to share?
Well, so I was at Airtable during the initial kind of what most of us know as the AI revolution. Obviously, people have been working on AI for many, many years, but around, of course, ChatGPT being released is when I was there, and this is fall winter of 22 into 23, and every company is thinking, what do we do? This is a gift or a curse. We're not sure, but we got to do something with this. We got to run very quickly. It felt very existential at the time. And the question was very much like, what do we do with AI? There were other players like Notion that moved very, very quickly in a very, I think, obvious direction. AI is very, very good at summarizing. Notion has a lot of documents. So summarizing documents was their first feature, and it makes perfect sense. Slack did this as well as their first feature, is summarizing channels and channel content. So at Airtable, it's a little bit different. We have relational data, and so you're not going to summarize that. So what do we do with it? And we had kind of two use cases that we could potentially pursue. One was creating Airtable applications. I'll just call everything an application, even if it's a spreadsheet. Okay. Creating Airtable applications happens thousands of times a day by all kinds of different builders. They call them builders, which is interesting, right? Because this is before Lovable and all of these where you're building rather than developing. Airtable had this thought, right, of citizen developers that would go out there and build these applications. And the way that Airtable approached that is, of course, through a WYSIWYG interface. This is what people were doing basically, between 2010 and 2025 or 2023, I should say. And then with AI, the one approach was sorry.
So, sorry for the audience. WYSIWYG is
Oh, sorry. What you see is what you get. So it's the old, wizard-like approach at building things. And so we could have taken AI and applied it to that use case of building Airtable applications and made it much simpler. We see some of that now with, Cursor and Lovable and Replit and other applications coming out and having, vibe coding interfaces. The other thing that we could do is take AI and give it as a tool, as something powerful to our customers. So actually, because Airtable, you can imagine applications do a lot of things. How about take AI and give it to these application builders so that they can build more powerful applications, right? So if you have an application that, for example, fires off emails, email campaigns, maybe you can now add the ability to auto-generate the email that it sends out rather than have someone, have to build that in. We decided, to make a long story short, we decided on the latter rather than the former. It seemed like power that we were going to give to the hands of our users was more important than making it easier to build using Airtable. And what ended up happening was that this was not a use case. It was so early in the journey of AI that this was not a use case that our customers knew what to do with. It was like giving them an extremely powerful computer, in the, I don't know, 1980s, when they just weren't ready to do anything with this supercomputer. And so a lot of customers were just looking at us like, thanks, but what do you want me to do with this? And then Airtable did pivot right as I was leaving and started building more okay, well, then let's just make it really easy to build. And that's been released recently. And from what I understand, I'm no longer there, obviously. What I understand is that it's really taken off and been incredibly powerful. And I think that we probably are not surprised seeing what other, tools like Cursor is doing.
Yeah, so it makes sense. So essentially, you could either help people build a lot faster with Airtable. That's one use case. The other one is use AI in the processes that they're running.
Right.
And so back in 2023, people didn't yet know what to do with it. What do you think you guys could have done in advance instead of going and building these capabilities? Were there things that you could have done that maybe are good lessons for listeners here before you go and build these cool and magical capabilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way I've looked at AI, I've been through cloud and mobile and even client server. That's how old I am. As far as transformations, I think these are all fabulous technologies. AI, we can make arguments, is maybe much bigger than the other three transformations. But at the end of the day, transformations are really nothing without use cases. And so I think that what made cloud easy, or what made cloud amazing, is that now it was just much, much easier to build an app. This is very similar to AI. What are the use cases that we're trying to solve? Rather than taking from the technology backwards and saying, well, we're gonna do AI, we're gonna put it somewhere. Let's put it here, and there. And for us, thinking back about it, at Airtable, that building pain was a real pain. We saw that as a real pain. We saw that in the conversion numbers as far as how many people start the process and finish with a working app. We saw that as far as feedback from customers. So we knew that was a pain. And in hindsight, chasing pain rather than chasing innovation, I think was the right way to go. As far as your question, from testing and doing this in a way that maybe it doesn't take, I think it was about 9 months of investment before we went on to the next thing, um, is just simply, I addressed a little bit the customer pain and doing investigation up front, but then also what I like to do with enterprise software always is build very, very quickly with a small set of customers. It's one of the benefits that we get in enterprise software. That's a little bit more difficult sometimes to do in the consumer world because it's a law of numbers in consumer world. But in enterprise, you can go in with a handful of companies, co-develop with them very, very quickly. By that, I mean getting feedback very quickly, very rapidly from them. And then, within 2 to 3 months, see if you have something that's really, being used. And if you don't, something is wrong.
So yes, so essentially, instead of targeting AI as the goal, AI can solve pains and use cases. But first, you need to identify the pain and use case and think about, will AI solve this? And if it does, build a sort of a smaller experiment and then go and try it out with customers, enterprise customers, get feedback, see usage, measure usage, see their, how actually they're putting this into place, and then adjust accordingly. So instead of going on this 9-month adventure where at the end of it, you're delivering something that doesn't solve anything and doesn't get picked up, you start from the pain and all that. I think that's really important to realize as you're thinking about these things.
Yes. I think that people are getting there from what I can tell.
So getting where?
To realizing that AI is not magic sauce that you spread on anything and that thing becomes magical. It is magical AI. But that doesn't mean that you can just apply it anywhere, liberally spreading it and magic comes out everywhere. You need to have a use case. It's good at certain things. I know we'll talk about, Checkr in a second. It's good at certain things. It's bad at other things. And so it's really important to think about this also use case by use case.
Yeah, I agree. So that's a great segue. You took your learnings from Airtable and applied them at Checkr. Can you walk us a bit through that?
Yeah. So first of all, the AI journey at Checkr started before I joined. Just so I'm clear, I don't want to take any credit for some of the work that was done before I joined. I joined about a year and a half ago. But at Checkr, actually, the initial work was actually, I think, exactly what AI is really good at. It started actually 5-6 years ago with machine learning, the predecessor sort of to AI. And then now has been upgraded to more of an AI-based model. But initially, essentially what we're doing is we have a lot of data at Checkr. Checkr, first of all, as a quick background, is an innovative leader in background checks. We take technology first approach to this problem of understanding people. The longer term product strategy is to take this same understanding of people from background checks to other times when you need to check someone's identity, fraud signals, or risk signals. We have that kind of holistic picture of a person, and we are starting to work with customers beyond just background checks. But now back to our story here. The first use case of that was you have a lot of messy data in this industry. It comes from the courts, it comes from the states, it comes from other data sources that have been collecting it for many, many years and sell it. Checkr collects all this information and tries to make sense of it. And this is a great place for machine learning. Let me just give you one example. We review lots and lots of criminal records from county court systems in the process of running all of our background checks. And in a year, we will see 2 million unique charge types. Charge types is basically what you did, what you were charged with. 2 million brand new ones that we've never seen before. And the reason why, it's not that 2 million new ones get created every single year in the codification of laws, right? It's that people are typing in things with typos in the system. That's what those 2 million are. This is a perfect use case for machine learning, or now we've upgraded this model to AI to basically understand and codify what it is that's been typed in and translate it back into something actually that a human can understand that doesn't have a typo or an error in it. So that's the first use case. And it actually did come from the pain of looking at all these different, charges in all these different records and many times not understanding them. In the classic way that, the competition, the background check vendors that are out there for many, many years have done it, is sending it to, humans to review. And while we still have an exception process for some to go to humans, the large majority are all completely automated because of this infrastructure and technology that we've built.
first of all, when you first said like 2 million new charge types, so that what, they invent new crimes every year. But no, that makes sense. So yeah, that makes sense. So okay, so AI does that, but how do you know when to send it to humans? Because one of the big complaints around Gen AI is, well, it's untrustworthy, it hallucinates, it makes mistakes. And I can tell you, we at Solid, we are a customer of Checkr, and we use it. We use it to do background checks for employees before we onboard them. You want to make sure that thing is 100% reliable. So how do you solve that problem?
Yes. So first of all, let me take a step back and say that the other reason why this is a great use case for AI is that we understand that AI is non-deterministic. And so if there are errors here, we have ways to, first of all, get around it, meaning it doesn't blow up the entire process. Like someone doesn't not get hired because of an error in AI. And so this leads to your question of where humans come in. We have lots and lots of different reviews in the system to catch these things. First of all, the machine learning model comes with confidence scores so that we know basically how confident this model is and roughly when we need to step in. But second, we also separately review a large portion of what comes out, even at a higher confidence interval, spot checking it to make sure that the model works along the way. And that spot checking has shown that it is more accurate than humans doing the same work. So a set of humans just doing the exact same work, reading these, classifications, these 2 million new things and making a judgment on what this is, are actually less accurate than our model. And we've gone side by side to make sure that that's the case.
That's mind blowing because, there's so many places where AI does a better job than humans, but humans still are reluctant. Like, for example, in one of our previous episodes, we were talking about Waymo, and Waymo say that they're 90% more safe than a human driver in San Francisco, less crashes and so forth. So they're 90% safer, but still everyone is afraid of the computer driving the car versus the human driving the car. So, you're coming in and saying, actually, the AI is more reliable than humans in this process. And still some people will hear, oh, AI is doing part of my background check. They'll be reluctant. They'll prefer a human does it, even though, just statistically, it doesn't make sense.
I know we'll get into a little bit into the regulated space and AI, using AI in a regulated space. So just to be clear, the AI that we use doesn't make the hiring decision for the person, for the company. We take all this information. There's a lot of gobbledygook that comes from the courts. We have AI clean it up. We present both the gobbledygook and the cleaned AI. So if you want to look at the, stuff that looks like basically a bunch of characters in a text field, that's fine. Like, feel free to take a look at that. We also show you the stuff that we think will make a lot easier to basically understand the charge, understand what this means, and make an assessment based off of it. But it's up to the humans at the end of the day to make a decision.
Good. Yeah. So it stays with the
technical,
humans. And so essentially,
in a way, gobbledygook.
No, yeah, very, very technical. Yeah, the gobbledygook. And so essentially putting AI, at least on that part of the work, what it achieves is a faster background check and a cheaper background check, right? You can offer it at better prices and you can offer it faster. That's essentially what it achieves, right? Is that a right way to think about it?
And also, perhaps most importantly, more accurate. So faster, more accurate, and more cost effective. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so that was one. So you came in, that was already ML, then it started moving into more Gen AI. What was the next use case that you guys tackled?
Yeah, so the next use case that we tackled was a little bit, I don't know if dicey is the right word, but it is an area where, we had to make some changes and roll back some functionality there. So here's what happened. We thought, again, we're all in the business of creating a really fast, really accurate background check, but also give a great user experience to both the customer, meaning the company that's hiring, and the candidate on both sides. And so the next thing that we thought was, okay, we're doing all this, AI to figure out what the charge is, and we present all this information to you. The next thing that we saw our customers doing is, again, looking for real pain. They went to Google to go search for, what does this all mean? Like, I've got this record from this county. I'm hiring someone from Hennepin County, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I don't know. I do. I grew up there, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what the laws are there. If I see this kind of charge, what does that mean? What does that mean in Hennepin, right? And so we actually did that all for you with an AI kind of wizard that when you look at the thing, at the charge, you can click on a button and it summarizes and explains it, and in English pulls it off all the information that's available through AI, and presented that. We sent that out, and right away we basically had to pull that back, because of the same thing that you brought up, which is people were very afraid. Wait a second, if I'm making a hiring decision based on all of this information that you're giving me, you're explaining this charge, but now this is coming from AI, and if I don't trust it and I'm making a hiring decision, what does that mean? So we had to basically change our entire process, again, bringing in humans. This also relates to the fact that we are in a regulated space, but also we want to be very careful with this. This is not something that we want to be, relaxed about, the hiring practices of our customers, and assisting them there. So what we do is we actually review with a human every single AI kind of explainer of every unique charge. So anytime we get something new, we actually, from any county or anything that we haven't seen, not the text, but once we interpret that back to what charge it is. So now we prove that model is 99.7% or close to 99.9% accurate now. So now we take that, and that's what we run against the prompt to get, the explainer. And so every time we get anything new, we will first review whatever that prompt-based AI explainer says before we send it off to any customer to see. So we have court specialists, criminologists that know this, review it and make sure that it's all accurate.
Okay. So essentially, there was this explainer, the AI sort of generated off the bat. So it saw a certain offense in a certain county, and it just generated and said, okay, this is what it is. People were reluctant, so you pulled it back. And now you sort of have imagined this massive matrix of all the counties and all the criminal offenses you may have, like this huge table. And then every time one of them comes up, AI generates a response, but it goes to a criminologist who reviews it, approves it, or edits it, and then it gets saved and now cached. So next time that criminal offense shows up in that same county, you just pull up the same description. And that way there's human in the loop, as we like to say, right?
Right.
Is that kind of the way to think about it?
That's exactly that's the right way to think about it. It would be a lot more convenient, obviously, if we could just go straight from prompt to customer. But we work in a very, regulated space, and we want to be very careful.
Okay. So, one of your learnings from Airtable was customer pain precedes implementation, right?
Yeah.
So customer pain. So the first one first example you gave here at Checkr was obvious, right? You want accurate, speed, and cost. In this one here, where it's explaining what the offense means, was that a major customer pain? Were customers coming to you and saying, hey, we don't understand what this thing means even? Was that a real pain that they had?
They weren't asking us to do it because they didn't imagine that it could be done. We just saw it as time that seemed, when we did basically both user interviews as well as watching them on site do their job. Those that we call them adjudicators, are the ones that basically run the background check and then make the decision, review and make the decision. We saw that they were almost every one of them clicking off to Google to do this search and doing some research and spending, between 5 and 10 minutes doing research on a statute in a certain county and all that. We're like, this seems like something AI could do pretty easily. Why are we not using that? And so it did not originate from customers, but the pain was there.
Okay. So you basically saw them do it and you said, they don't know to ask for this, but we can see them doing something that's inefficient and we can make their day better through this. Did you, by any chance, measure like an NPS score, a Net Promoter Score, before and after, or some kind of rating that you could tell, oh, they're happier now reviewing the background checks, or is it too granular to be able to measure that?
We didn't measure NPS, but we did look at statistics of usage because it was optionally on for the
Hmm.
company. First of all, like a company could turn it on or say, no, I don't like AI anywhere in this area. And so we got a sense of how many said, okay, from those that we offered in the early pilots, how many said that they would turn it on. And there was a pretty good percentage there. And then once turning it on, every single adjudicator has the option to click the button and say, explain this for me. And so we got to see what percentage of the time that they're running a background check, they're clicking this button.
And the result. I don't know if you could share, but the results were they're the ones that were satisfactory. Looked at it and say, okay, this was worth it. This was time well spent for us.
Yeah, I don't want to share the exact numbers of percentage of people who use the feature, but about 50% of the companies in the initial pilot, when we just started and we're looking for companies to try this out. Essentially, about 50% said yes, they'd be willing to try it out, which was much higher than what I thought. I thought that the reluctance to use AI in HR world was going to be much higher. And remember, this is when we started doing the pilot, it was about 9 months ago. So this was only about a year or so into kind of like AI in enterprise. And so I was actually,
Hmm.
yes, and this is an HR field, right? A field that is probably late, I would imagine, last to adopt AI. Um, or one of. And so I was actually pleasantly surprised by that. That told me that there's some value here, and also that people maybe are not as afraid of AI as I thought.
Yeah, I would maybe add also, Checkr has a very good name in the market with the customers, that you can rely on what Checkr does and what it gives you. So that probably weighed a lot into the if you were a small, very small startup, they might have been more reluctant, but I think they sort of trusted you to do your homework and the effort and the planning and the validation and all those things to deliver something that's reliable. I would guess. Would you agree?
I do agree. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do think that people have seen over the last 11 years that Checkr has a track record for thinking about this like any software company. We do QA like any software company.
Mhm.
Not like a service company. We think about metrics. We track everything, log, monitor. So it's a different kind of way to do these background checks that are largely manual. So I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay. You were on a podcast a few weeks ago called Product Kitchen, if I remember correctly. And one of the things you said there was that actually, after bringing in AI, you ended up having more people in certain roles than before.
Yes.
And, everybody keeps talking about AI is going to take work and, layoffs and so forth. You actually stated the reverse happened in a specific area. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So what I'm referring to there is this AI. If we go back to adding humans in the loop, these were groups that we never had before
Mhm.
because before it was this is net new functionality that we added. This interpretation of a record into English basically was net new functionality. So we always just took what the courts gave us and presented it. Here you go. This is what the court gave us, right? Um, and so now we had to hire these humans for the human in the loop of AI. So that's the irony, is that we add AI to our product, and then we end up actually hiring more humans. I don't think that that's going to be I don't think that that is a one-off. I don't think that we're the only ones that are going to see that. I think that yes, we're going to see some, job transformation, reductions, whatever through AI. Certain folks whose job is more to summarize documents or transcribe or something like that. Things that is just very, very good at. But I think that in what I've seen inside Checkr is that um, also the efficiency has grown our revenue which means that we have hired a lot more in the last 2 years than I think we would have if we didn't have this kind of efficiency and this kind of differentiation that we're bringing to this product area.
It's amazing to think about. So essentially there's, AI results in business growth. Business growth results in headcount growth in general, right? So you need more people of various roles to support a growing business. So, customer success, et cetera. So you have that. And then you created new functionality that AI unlocked. And for that functionality to be reliable, you needed people of certain skills. So while you reduced potentially the number of people who might be doing, manual tagging of certain things, you're increasing the people who are doing more expert type tagging or more expert type review. So you're switching from, maybe people who are less skilled at something to people who are more skilled or educated at something in that sort of their upskilling or up leveling that is unlocked with AI. Is that a good way to think about it?
I think that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think that across the board, if you look at R&D, if you look at engineering, product design, we're using AI. Almost everyone. We have actually benchmarks of using AI ourselves, where we want. We have a goal this year of 90% or more of every single employee using AI on a weekly basis. We've blown past that goal. That was set up in December of last year. And so as we see it, we're using more and more AI, but that's not changing our hiring in such a way where we're saying we don't need this group of people, we don't need that group of people. All in all, it is maybe moving a few people around, but largely we're growing as a company, we're hiring as a company, and a lot of that is driven by our efficiency and the differentiation that we're bringing our customers. Those two things are what is allowing us to really grow.
It's amazing to hear. That's quite a high bar to meet, and you guys blown past it. 26 is coming around the corner. Are there use cases that you're now looking to solve in the product going forward that you would bring in AI, you bring in all your past experience in building around AI, et cetera? Are there use cases that you look at them and you're like, I wonder if that would work. I wonder if this would be possible. This seems a bit like a moonshot or a bit of a stretch. Or are there use cases like that? And if yes, can you share a bit about that at a high level? Again, nothing confidential.
Yeah. I think that there's two or three big areas that we're going to go into. The first is fraud. There's a lot of fraud out there, document fraud, application fraud, resume fraud in the hiring process. And AI is a great place to deploy that. So we do one of the checks that we do today is like employment verification, right? Someone starts with you and your company and you want to say, hey, you know what? I want to make sure that their resume, what they told me, is really where they've worked over the last, 5 years. So one of the things that starts off that process could be them submitting to us, some type of proof of documentation to get started with, like a W-2 or something like that, or a resume. And if those are faked, then we have bad data to start the process, with. Imagine the success case where we want to make sure that everything works well. So we want to vet those out very, very quickly, essentially, and AI allows us to do that. So fraud and document fraud, I think, is going to be a big area. The second area that I'd really like to dive into is basically taking and focusing a little bit more on the candidate. So candidates apply through, Checkr, obviously, for, not apply for a job, but finish the application of the background check. And when they do that, we want that process to be as seamless as possible for them. So thinking about it from the again, looking for pain and thinking about it from the candidate perspective, there are a couple of key things. First is just translation. If the language is not your primary language, we can make the process much more simple. These filling out forms much simpler if we're able to give you some type of translation or some type of assistance, even a pilot, like a co-pilot next to you, that basically helps you with the application. And secondly, we have a unique feature for the background check space, which is this candidate stories. It asks for the candidate for their side of what happened when we find some type of charge that the customer wants
Mhm.
to hear more about. Um, and in that process of filling out that candidate stories, a lot of candidates fill it out incorrectly. They don't understand exactly the prompt, perhaps. Again, it could be a language barrier, but they fill out something that doesn't really do them a lot of justice because it doesn't, it doesn't really address the main problem that the customer is asking about. And so you could think of a tool that is kind of like Grammarly for candidates. It doesn't necessarily write the story for them, but it helps by analyzing it and saying, hold on a second, doesn't seem like you're really answering this question that was asked over here very well. Maybe, expand a little bit on this, this is something that's perfect for AI. And it would be just a nice thing to do for candidates. It would also help our customers because the stories that they would get back would make, much more sense and would help them out in making their decisions. So I think it's good on both sides.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what's the pain for the customer, but that makes sense. If you make it easier on the candidate to respond, you're saving time and effort for the customer because after all, the customer spent time interviewing this person, went through a lot of things along the way, maybe did reference checks, etc. Background check is fairly late. It would be a waste of time if this person fails a background check just because they didn't understand the question.
Right.
And for the candidate, it's not great, but also for your customer who invested all this effort as an organization, and now they lose the candidate because of that.
Yeah.
So it's a dual sided pain.
I'm looking now at we've always been obsessed at TAT, turnaround time, essentially like how fast does it take for a background check to
Mhm.
clear? And we've always looked at, average and P75, P90. I really want to look now at P99 and think about, or what is that
Mhm.
last 1%, what do we need to think about for that last 1%? Because if you hire, maybe in a small startup, it makes a little bit less of a difference. But if you're hiring several hundred people a year and, several of those now need to wait, several weeks because they didn't fill out something right, or they put in a social security card when the form asked for a driver's license or whatever, and just slow the entire process down. Now you, as a hiring manager at that company, is like, oh, my person can't start because they haven't finished the background check. That's not the right thing. I mean, once you've finished all this work of interviewing and hiring and, making a decision, the background check should not slow you down from onboarding that person. So I want to look at the long tail now.
I agree. We, as I mentioned, we use Checkr, and it was actually a recent hire where, we did everything, all the interviews, all the reference checks, etc. Background check took a while. The employment verification portion of it, actually.
Yeah.
And, and I had that antsy feeling of, let's get this over with. I want to get this guy onboarded, but, need to see that employment verification goes through.
Yeah.
So anything that shortens, turnaround time is amazing. Is very, very, very much appreciated.
You will be happy to know that we are working on employment verification turnaround time right now. And by the end of the year, it'll be considerably faster. We're bringing a lot
Amazing. It's
of
great to hear.
instant to employment verification, which is traditionally a very slow process of phone calls and verifying, that way.
Yeah, emailing, phone call, calling the previous employers, looking at the 1099 or W-2, trying to figure out, also, is this real? You talked about fraud. I didn't think about that, but, is this a real document? So it's a challenge there.
You'll be surprised how many
I know we only have a couple
from employers or customers of ours that they are seeing document fraud in the hiring process, where
Oh,
more and more so with AI. Yeah. We just saw a report that Gartner is estimating that by 2028, 1 in 4 candidates, it will be a fake candidate, essentially, or partially fake through AI. That is that's considerable. Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot. Scary. There was a person I interviewed. This is like 2 months ago, where we were on a Zoom, and throughout the entire interview, I wasn't sure if this person was real. Like there was something a bit off about something, and I couldn't point my finger on it, but something felt a bit off. And they didn't pass the interview in the end, but something didn't feel right. And I don't know to this day, I don't know if it was AI generated. It felt off. There's something wrong.
Yeah. I definitely had several interviews where it was very clear that the candidate was reading something off their screen about 10 seconds after I asked the question. And so there's no question that some AI interview tools have started to sneak in.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we only have the last few minutes here in this episode. I have a few just basically lightning round type questions. I'm going to ask you a question, try to think little as possible, and just shoot back your answer. Okay. AI tool you can't live without.
ChatGPT.
Is it just in the professional settings or also personal settings?
No,
more on one or the other?
No, we actually don't have the enterprise ChatGPT, so I actually am not allowed to use it enterprise settings. So it's just personal.
Mm-hmm.
It is doing everything for me right now. We're planning a trip, family trip to Argentina. ChatGPT is my, travel sidekick basically for everything from restaurants to hotels to, I asked for it for flight recommendations to cut a leg out. I mean, everything. It's fantastic. I know it's cliche, but
Yeah, it's amazing.
Fantastic.
An AI myth you'd bust in one sentence.
That AI is going to lead to net job loss.
You're seeing firsthand that the other side is going the other direction. Actually, it's creating jobs.
I believe very strongly in all of these industrial and technical revolutions that we've ever had have always led to more productivity, and with that, more jobs. Productivity just creates jobs. It reduces the price of things, which increases, the amount that you sell, and will create jobs. I just don't see it any other way in the long run.
Amazing, interesting. Favorite book, podcast, or resource for builders?
Oh, that's good for builders. I thought, yeah. I guess that makes sense, of course, as a question since we're talking about AI.
Yeah,
I don't have a great one. The only one that I listen to is How AI, and I think it's good. I think it's like good tidbits. I'm not sure that I've found anything yet that really just changes the game as far as how to build.
Okay, last one. And let's not make it job related. Let's give you try it. We'll squeeze another one out of you. One prediction for AI in the next 5 years.
My prediction for AI in the next 5 years is that we're going to see AI being used in the home a lot more than what we see today. So homework assistance for kids, cooking assistance for adults, hopefully laundry assistance for adults. I need all of that. But I think that's something that we're going to see in the next 5 years.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, my daughter came to me with, I think I told you the story, but my daughter came to me with geometry homework, and I didn't understand what she was talking about because, first of all, it was many, many years ago, but also it was in Hebrew. So I didn't understand the terminology. So I pulled out ChatGPT. I just took a photo of the homework. Said, can you please explain this to me so I can explain to my daughter? So yeah.
I've shortcutted that. I've just given my son ChatGPT and just said, you just go figure it out. Ask me if there's anything that you need beyond that. If you need more tokens, I'll pay for more tokens.
Yeah, the tokens. Yeah, my daughter's school had her sign a paper that says she's not going to use AI at all for anything related to her homework. So she can't use it. So she comes to me, but I didn't use it. I didn't sign it.
You didn't sign it.
I didn't sign it.
Look, I think
I'm not a part.
honestly, I think it's like typewriter, right? I mean, we learn how to, write essentially using a typewriter or using a, for me, it was a, word processor. Um, 100 years ago, people were just writing down on paper. I don't see that as cheating. I think that this is one of the tools that our kids need to learn and need to be comfortable with.
I agree completely. Okay, we're at time. Ilan, I really, really appreciate you taking the time. This was enlightening and entertaining and really interesting. And I'm always great. The listeners don't know this, but Ilan and I have known each other for many years. So always great to talk with you and interact with you. Again, thank you for joining.
Absolutely. That was fun.